He's Mark Littlewood, he's Director of Popular Conservatism and joins us. A very good morning to you.
Morning, Julia. Good to speak with you.
Good to speak with you. There's lots to get through. Let's start, though, with this jobless benefits claimants. This is the most extraordinary stat. It's up by 1 million. I mean, 1 million in just 1 year. I mean, these stats are pretty extraordinary anyway in terms of it was 5.5 million people claiming universal credit in 2020. And then since then, it has just ballooned. These people must still think we're on furlough, for goodness sake, on lockdown. It's absolutely ballooned to 8 million in total now. 1 million migrants on benefits, interestingly as well. But 3.7 million, lots of numbers here, but 3.7 million of those 8 million people not only don't work, because some people, there's a few who do work, but not full-time and not on decent wages, but 3.7 million of them have no requirement to work whatsoever. Who are these people? Why has it grown so much? And what on earth should we do about it?
Yeah, Julia, I'm trying to work out what unreported plague has swept through the United Kingdom, causing us to be the most sickly country in the world.
You'd think it would have made the BBC News by now, right?
You would have thought the mainstream media would have picked it up by now.
Probably no. They've all got long COVID. It hasn't hit any other country, but long COVID must have hit them.
There you go. There's obviously something in the water here, isn't there? Look, the truth is this, isn't it? People respond to market incentives and prices. And basically, sickness in 2025 is the new version of unemployment and I can't find a job from back in the 1970s and the 1980s. If it is easy to sign off work and get some sort of check, and there's no real obligation on you to look for a job, don't be surprised when people do it. You've just been talking a few minutes ago about what a soft touch we are with immigrants. Well, we're quite a soft touch with our own indigenous working age population too, right? Yeah. So, and I think the particular problem, which is harder to monitor, is mental health problems. Yeah. Look, if you have just had a stroke or you've broken your leg or something, this is pretty binary, and a doctor can say yes, this person has broken their leg or has.
They can't work as a builder.
Yeah, exactly. But if you say I am depressed or feeling anxious or stressed, damn difficult to monitor, quite easy for a doctor just to say, I believe you, here's your note, you've got...
Well, you can believe that someone feels that. It doesn't mean they can't work.
Yeah, and usually the best solution to those problems is to get a job and go to work, right? So usually that's the medicine that should typically be prescribed, not sit at home and watch television. So it is a disaster. I mean, in effect, these people should be counted as unemployed rather than sick. And I think the solution is we need to be an awful lot tougher on this. So the overriding assumption needs to be, if you are of working age and want an income, you're going to have to work. Now, there will be...
Sorry, how incredibly right-wing and outrageous of you to say such a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind if people don't work, but then they shouldn't expect an income.
Oh, right? I do mind if people don't work, because if you're able-bodied and able-bodied, you actually have a duty to contribute to help other people in society.
So you ban early retirement and things like that?
No, people have contributed, but I genuinely think that there is a duty of care. If you want to have things like roads and hospitals and schools, it might be an idea, police officers and fire stations, it might be an idea if you made a contribution to it, and if you are able to work, you should make a contribution to that. I don't think that's not really... If you want to live in if you want to go and live in the middle of nowhere in a tent and have none of those and don't have access, and if you get ill, you don't expect to have a doctor or nurse treat you, then fine. But otherwise, if you want to have those societal facilities, you need to contribute towards them.
Yes, I think there's some truth in that.
I'm a socialist at heart, Mark. From each according to their ability, to each according to their need.
You can sometimes be a very dangerous pinko lefty, Julia. No, I think that's right. I mean, I think you need to also change the benefit system to be a bit more contributory. That's what it used to be with national insurance, that you can claim out on national insurance if you've paid your national insurance stamp. It's there as an insurance system. Bit of the same way if you don't take out insurance on your jewellery and it gets nicked, nobody's going to bail you out, right? It's only those who pay the insurance. So I'd like a much more contributory system rather than just tax goes in.
That wouldn't be unreasonable, would it? But looking at these stats, so you've got these 8 million people, and there's got a useful graph here, and it basically shows that, well, there's 2 million people who come under the various categories of planning for work, preparing for work, searching for work. I mean, but they're not actually working, but there's over 2 million of them. I don't know what's planning for work and preparing for work. I don't know what that is.
Say preparing for work's getting out of bed on time, putting some clothes on and going to an office. That's the preparation.
I mean, it seemed to me that would be, I mean, again, but 3.7 million with no work requirements. And again, we all know that a lot of those be people written off on the sickness benefits. We've seen a lot of that, lots of documentaries of that, a lot of that being exposed. It'll happen under the Tory government. I mean, it's massively gone off the scale since we've seen, I mean, really has shot up since Labour have come into power. But what happened in the last year for that to go up so much?
Well, I think more and more people have clocked on to the fact, and these facts are changing in real time.
So we publicised it and said how awful it was, and they went, brilliant, I'll have a bit of that.
Quite. It's very easy to get. People are becoming more and more aware of how easy it is to get.
Yeah.
In general terms, it's less and less attractive to work because taxes are going up, especially stealth taxes. So it looks like there's no chance that the income tax thresholds will be increased.
Yeah. Having to leave the house, get up in the morning.
Yeah, but I'm afraid, if you incentivise sitting at home and watching television and disincentivise getting off your backside and going to a place of work, guess what people will do?
I know. But this is the thing.
People sitting on their sofa and less people in.
A lot of people who make policy, they talk about work being enriching. They tend to do A, well-paid jobs. B, they get a lot of sort of social status from their job. They get a lot of pleasure from their job because they do interesting work. I've done a lot of the rubbish. I've got some great jobs in my time. I've got a fantastic job now. I'm very, very lucky. But there are a lot of jobs that I've done and which a lot of people do for their whole lives, which aren't very rewarding. They're not very well paid. And no, you're never going to get off the minimum wage or close to it. And it's kind of drudgery and it's really boring and it's repetitive and you might have a rotten boss. And so the people who make these policies who think, but of course no one would choose to be unemployed. They've never done those jobs. They don't understand why it would be a completely rational decision if it were available to not do those jobs if you can be on something close to the same income.
No, that's exactly right. They ignore the kind of leisure gap, or they assume, as you say, that those in good and exciting jobs like yours, Julia, are doing it as much for the love of the work as for the salary. But if your basic salary is going to be around, I don't know, let's say £15,000 to £20,000 a year, that sort of range, it probably isn't worth you working unless you really like sweeping the streets or cleaning graffiti off walls.
Which, by the way, is a more useful job than I do.
Well, a very useful job. So here's a thought, right? A couple of decades ago, Wisconsin in America tackled this by bringing in a Workfare plan.
Loving Workfare.
Their basic idea was, if you are able-bodied, I mean, I'm simplifying a bit, but you've got to turn up at the park gates at 8 o'clock on Monday to Friday, and we will give you some tasks, collecting litter, removing graffiti from walls, whatever,
But you will turn up.
And you will turn up. And if you don't turn up, you will not get your benefits. And they sort of assumed, I understand it, that this would mean that we would suddenly have loads of people doing, almost community service and the parks would be cleaner and the rest of it. What actually happened within a mere number of weeks is, miracle of miracles, these people then suddenly found a job in the private sector.
Yeah, funnily that. Also, I imagine there'll be a large number of people who actually were already working in the private sector. They were just doing it off the books.
Therefore couldn't turn up. So I think that would be an interesting way of approaching it. There is some sort of administrative overhead, but basically if you're able-bodied and you want to claim your welfare benefits, we expect to see you at the park gates or at the station entrance.
I would
it might be,
love that.
Every morning.
I'd love all you. Come on, people get in touch. Would you be in favour of that? 0344 499 1000. Do get in touch. Let's also talk about the migrant issue because again, it's a huge cost, a huge drain to society. We've got fewer and fewer people working, taxes going up on the few people who are working, an ageing population. But yeah, let's just import a load of people, both legally and illegally. 50,000 is the official tally as of yesterday. It's already gone up since Channel migrants arriving. And ministers try to say, well, this is the fault of the Tories. They allowed this to grow, even though of course they've arrested fewer people smugglers since they've been in office than the Tories did in the last year of them being in office. What do you make of that?
Well, look, I'm going to try and be as fair-minded as I can. I think when a new government comes into office, it inherits whatever the previous government, gave it. But we're now more than a year in. And my worry about this government is as if they've turned up and found their houses on fire and are just pointing at it saying, look, the Tories put the house on fire. They're not calling the fire brigade. They're not dousing the flames. In fact, they're pouring petrol onto the flames and continuing to point at it and saying, look what the Tories did a year ago. So there's no discernible plan here. if they'd come in on day one and had a plan, you would grant them a bit of time to allow the plan to bed in, right? You don't expect miracle results on day one, but I can't discern what the plan is. And it does seem like the UK's business model at the moment is to chase out all of our millionaires and billionaires, wave them goodbye as they go abroad, and welcome in vast numbers of people who aren't typically particularly productive in the economy and are often on welfare. That is the UK business model.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to work out. Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to work out well for us. Just fine, I must ask you, because you were at the Institute of Economic Affairs for a long time as well. And let's talk about inheritance tax. We're told on the front page of the Telegraph today that families face a fresh inheritance tax grab because of the current system. Parents can give money to their children in free gifts, basically untaxed gifts, and it's tapered in terms of the tax they pay depending on whether or not they survive the next 7 years or not. So it's within 3 years. If you give a gift, you might give early inheritance to your child. If you then die within the next 3 years, then it will be taxed at 40%, but it goes down to I think 8% before 7 years and up. If you die after 7 years, there's no tax in it at all. The Treasury is looking at getting rid of that and saying, nope, we're going to tax you on every gift you ever give your child. How on earth do they do that?
It's crazy. Inheritance tax, in my view, is an incredibly mean-spirited tax. It hits people when they're obviously at a low ebb because they've typically lost a loved one, but it's also nearly impossible to enforce. I mean, imagine that you buy an expensive piece of jewellery and you claim to give it to your spouse, in which case there wouldn't be any inheritance tax on it, but you actually give it to your daughter. Yeah. Well, how is the tax man actually going to police that? How many times, might the richer, more senior member of the family pay for a restaurant meal out, 10 times a year? Is this all going to be logged? It is ludicrous. I mean, my preference would be to abolish inheritance tax. It is only about 1% of all tax receipts.
Yeah. And the very rich don't pay it.
Exactly. If you're a multi-millionaire, you can set up trusts and everything. Yeah. It basically hits the mildly affluent middle class. Who've
usually worked really darn hard for it and not unreasonably might want to help their kids in the future. Martin Littlewood, so great to talk to you. Covered lots of ground there. Director of Popular Conservatism. Thank you. Claire Pearce will come back on any of that.
Love the contributory system for benefits. I think that would mean something, as it used to be.
Bit of Workfare for you?
I love that idea. I absolutely do. And I'm going to be called all manner of names for suggesting that people actually need to go and work. Get up, get out.
I'm so in favour of the Workfare, so in favour of that 100%.